Hey guys, Jake here from Hogtown Spokes. This is the first video in a series we're going to start called Tech Tuesdays, and we will do them every Tuesday. We're not going to forget. We're here at the barn, as I like to call it. This is the outside of our workshop, and we call it that because this is a Confederation home from 1867, and this was originally a barn space for a stable for the owners who would have taken a carriage into town. What I want to talk today about is something that's pretty straightforward for a lot of experienced mountain bike riders, but even then, some folks don't know this, and certainly for new riders, this is really important. You cannot inflate your fork or your rear shock with a standard press-to-valve pump. Most people know that. You need a dedicated shock pump, but not all shock pumps are created equal. I got this guy off of Chain Reaction Cycles. It's made by German company SKS. They call it the Sam Suspension Air Mechanik. Sorry guys. And I bought this because it has one very specific feature, actually two very specific features that I'm a huge fan of. It has a detachable engagement valve. I'll explain what that does in a second. And it also has really high quality reinforced steel braided hose. You're not going to see those two features on a lot of pumps. Don't just walk into your bike shop and pay 40 bucks for the first shock pump you find. I've seen the seals fail, and those two features are absolutely critical. So the detachable valve I was talking about, the reason that's really important is air spring assemblies, so the left side of your fork, are really, really sensitive to pressure. So basically, if you have a low grade shock pump and you just use that to inflate your fork, you're gonna have to unthread that and simultaneously rip it off the valve so fast for the fork to not lose pressure that most cases the reading you got on your gauge is going to be very different than what you actually set sag with or go ahead and ride a trail with. And that's what this detachable valve is designed for. The bottom here with that double O-ring setup and the knurled nut, that allows you to actually attach it to the valve, and then it's only when you engage the upper knurled nut that the in this case Schrader valve, like I said pressed earlier, the Schrader valve on the air spring assembly will actually open up and start to receive or bleed air. So the advantage to that is that the inverse applies when you remove it. You unscrew this, it seals off the Schrader valve, and then you can unthread it, so there's basically no air loss, and the reading on your gauge is true to what you'll actually set sag and then ride with. That's massive. And then the other feature I talked about earlier, this reinforced steel braided hose, goes a long way to preventing leaks. And it also means that you can curve this fairly aggressively to fit your fork without kinking the hose and causing sealing issues down the road. So let's do that. I've deliberately taken a bunch of air out of my fork. I'm going to remove the RockShox air cap on my pipe here. So you want to go ahead and hold the O-rings and carefully, I can't say this strongly enough, carefully thread this on until you encounter resistance. Do not cross thread it. Patience, as with any threaded bike part, goes a long way. Okay, and I'll get my trusty camera person here to focus on the gauge. Notice how it's not showing a pressure reading, and that's because I haven't engaged the upper knurled nut yet. But now I will, and you should see, yeah, you'll see the needle jump because I still have a base amount of pressure in there, and that is so cool. That's the only time the air starts to actually flow. So for me, I'm roughly 170 pounds before riding gear. I ride aggressively. I set my suspension up pretty firm. So sometimes I'll go as high as 85 to 90 psi plus volume spacers. Because this is an SKS tool made in Europe, they use a German gauge, the European style gauge that has bar readings more prominently than PSI. And so the way you use this is PSI is on the interior scale, and you simply just multiply the white bar readings by 10. So if I wanted to set this up for 90 PSI, I will find what is roughly a 9 on the gray scale, knowing that times 10 it actually equals 90 PSI. So let's go ahead and do that. Take a while. I would mistrust any shock pump that adds a ton of air quickly. That's probably a false reading. Okay, so there we are. We're at, give or take a couple PSI, 90, which will suit my weight, sag preferences, and riding style. And then this is where the Germans have earned. I'm going to hold the lower O-ring neural nut just to stabilize it, and I'm going to disengage the top one, which again, make sure that I don't have any air leak as I unscrew this. You'll hear a hiss, but that is a completely superfluous surface bond between the shock pump and the Schrader valve. It's the air leak that happens there is so negligible as to be almost irrelevant. So I just heard it. I'm going to unscrew this, and I can go out and ride now with full confidence that my fork is actually at 90 psi. Shock.